Let's talk about money. It's something that affects every aspect of our lives, from the food we eat to the homes we live in, and even the opportunities we have. More specifically, about who has it and who doesn't. The disparity between the wealthy and the poor is more pronounced than ever. We live in a world where a tiny percentage of people control most of the wealth. This concentration of wealth in the hands of a few has far-reaching consequences. This isn't just unfair, it's a recipe for disaster. When wealth is so unevenly distributed, it creates a host of social and economic problems that affect everyone. This massive gap between the super-rich and everyone else is called wealth inequality. It's a term that encapsulates the growing divide between those who have more than they could ever need and those who struggle to get by. And it's a huge problem. Experts agree that wealth inequality is one of the most pressing issues of our time. It affects not just the economy, but the very fabric of our society. It affects everything from housing and healthcare to education and politics. When a small group of people hold the majority of the wealth, they also hold the majority of the power. This power imbalance can lead to policies that favor the rich and neglect the needs of the poor and middle class. History has shown us that extreme wealth inequality can lead to economic instability. The Great Depression, for example, was preceded by a period of significant wealth disparity. When the economy is unstable, everyone suffers. But the poor and middle class bear the brunt of the hardship. But it doesn't have to be this way. Communities around the world are coming together to address wealth inequality. From grassroots movements to policy changes, people are fighting for a fairer, more equitable society. Change is possible, but it requires collective action. It requires us to recognize the problem and work together to find solutions. Whether it's through voting, activism, or simply raising awareness, we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world. Imagine a world where everyone has access to the resources they need to thrive. A world where wealth is more evenly distributed, and everyone has a fair shot at success. This is the world we can create if we work together to address wealth inequality. So let's talk about money, and let's talk about how we can make the game fair for everyone. Because when we all have a chance to succeed, we all win. We've all heard of the 1%, but just how much do they have? The richest 1% of Americans own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Let that sink in. This means a few thousand people have more money than millions and millions of their fellow citizens. This concentration of wealth is staggering and morally wrong. The super-rich often argue they earned their wealth through hard work and smart investments. They claim that anyone can achieve the same level of success if they just put in the effort and make the right choices. But is that really the whole story? The reality is far more complex. The system is rigged in their favor from the start. From access to better education and healthcare to networking opportunities that are out of reach for the average person, the wealthy have a head start that most can only dream of. They benefit from tax loopholes and deductions that ordinary people can only dream of. These tax breaks are often written into law by politicians who are funded by the wealthy, creating a cycle that perpetuates inequality. While the average person struggles to pay their fair share, the rich find ways to minimize their tax burden, keeping more of their wealth and growing it even further. They use their money to influence politicians and write laws that benefit them, not us. Campaign contributions, lobbying, and other forms of political influence ensure that the interests of the wealthy are always prioritized. This means that policies that could help level the playing field, like progressive taxation or increased social spending, are often blocked or watered down. This isn't about hard work, it's about an uneven playing field that keeps the rich on top. The myth of meritocracy is just that, a myth. The deck is stacked, and until we address these systemic issues, true equality will remain out of reach. It's time to recognize the barriers that exist and work towards a fairer system for everyone. Ever wonder why finding affordable housing is so hard? Look no further than the super-rich. Investors buy up properties, driving up prices and pushing ordinary people out of their communities. In many cities, essential workers like teachers and firefighters can't even afford to live where they work. This isn't a housing crisis, it's a greed crisis fueled by the wealthy. Section 5. Stagnant wages. The rich get richer, we stay stuck. While CEO pay skyrockets, most people's wages have barely budged in decades. The rich are getting richer, while the rest of us are working harder for less. This isn't just unfair, it's unsustainable. When people can't afford basic necessities, the entire economy suffers. Section 6. Healthcare and Justice. Life-saving care only for the wealthy? In America, healthcare is often treated as a privilege, not a right. The super rich can afford the best doctors and treatments, while millions struggle to pay medical bills. People are forced to choose between their health and financial ruin. This is unacceptable in a civilized society. Section 7. Education Inequality. The cycle of poverty continues. Where you're born and how much money your parents have shouldn't determine your future. Yet wealthy children attend elite schools with top-notch resources while underfunded public schools struggle. This perpetuates a cycle of poverty and inequality that traps generations. Section 8. Political influence. Their money, their rules. The super rich use their wealth to influence elections and shape policies in their favor. They donate millions to political campaigns, buying access and influence over elected officials. This undermines democracy and ensures that the system continues to benefit the wealthy at the expense of everyone else. Section 9. Environmental damage. The planet pays the price. The wealthy's excessive consumption habits are destroying our planet. From private jets to mega mansions, their carbon footprint is massive. They profit from industries that pollute our air and water, leaving future generations to deal with the consequences. Section 10. Moral outrage. Enough is enough. Wealth inequality is not just an economic issue, it's a moral crisis. It's wrong that a handful of people have so much while so many struggle to survive. It's time to reject the idea that greed is good and demand a fairer system for everyone. Section 11. Call to action. Demand a fairer system. In a world where inequality is growing at an alarming rate, it's crucial that we stand up and demand a fairer system for everyone. This isn't just about numbers or statistics, it's about real people, real lives, and real futures. We can't just sit back and watch as the gap between the rich and the rest of us widens. Every day, we see the stark contrast between those who have more than they need and those who struggle to get by. This disparity is not just unfair, it's unsustainable. The time to act is now. We need to demand change. This means coming together as a community, as a society, and as a global family to insist on policies that promote fairness and justice. It's about raising our voices not just for ourselves, but for those who are often unheard. We need to fight for policies that promote economic equality. Contact your elected officials, let them know that you demand a fairer system. Write letters, make phone calls, attend town hall meetings. Your voice matters and it can make a difference. Support organizations fighting for social justice. There are countless groups and nonprofits dedicated to bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. By volunteering your time, donating resources, or simply spreading the word, you can contribute to a larger movement for change and make your voice heard. Whether it's through social media, community gatherings, or public demonstrations, every action counts. The louder we are, the harder it is for those in power to ignore us. The time for action is now. We can't afford to wait any longer. Every moment we delay is another moment of suffering for those who are marginalized and oppressed. The urgency of this issue cannot be overstated. Let's create a world where everyone has a chance to thrive, where opportunities are not limited by one's background or economic status. Imagine a society where every child, regardless of where they come from, has the chance to succeed and live a fulfilling life. Not just the privileged few. It's time to break down the barriers that divide us and build bridges that connect us. Together, we can create a future where prosperity is shared and no one is left behind. Let's demand a fairer system for ourselves, for our children, and for generations to come.